It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago. And it's 7 p.m. in New York City. Hello, everybody. I'm Mad Dog the Scipio, joined as I am each and every week, God help me, by Amelia the Pitbull Chapman. How are you, Amelia?
Good, doing good. How are you?
You don't even want to know how I am. Folks, we're a little late going on the air tonight. That's okay. Don't worry. I promise you I'll make it worth it. We had a little bit of technical issues tonight with our guest co-host, Eddie Deezen. He will be with us tomorrow night, but he's going to sit this one out. Tonight, a returning guest. His name is Rick Saphire, author of The Real Jerry Lewis Story. The stuff that you thought you knew about Jerry Lewis. The funny man everybody loved. Well, maybe not so funny, or maybe not so loved. Let me tell everybody a little bit about Rick Saphire. Since his early days, Jerry Lewis, in the line of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Stan Laurel, had the masses laughing with his visual gags and pantomime sketches, signature slapstick humor. Yet Lewis was far more than just a clown. He was also a groundbreaking filmmaker whose unquenchable curiosity led him to write, produce, stage, and direct many of the films he appeared in. He was also visceral, mean-spirited, and housed an unchecked ego. He was also, at the same time, universally loved, particularly in Europe and France, where he was considered a hero. Largely, I think, because they didn't know the real Jerry Lewis. But the man who knew him well, our guest tonight, is Rick Saphire, and he is the author of, pardon my benchers, folks, he is the author of The Real Jerry Lewis Story. What you thought you knew. Rick Saphire is a returning guest. Rick, welcome to the show, and God bless you for hanging out with us for longer than you wanted to.
Thank you so much.
How are you, my friend?
Great, thank you. If the audience could have only heard the conversation that was going on while you were trying to get this technical stuff to work, that was very entertaining.
It's the stuff that church sermons are made of.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, welcome back, and congratulations on the book. You had your launch party this week.
Yeah, the book is finally out in one form. Anyway, what happened was the book is, well, I tell people I've been writing the book since 1953, which was when I met Jerry for the first time, and I was a little kid. But the book is being written, or was written in earnest over the last 10 years. And over the last 3 years, it was a full-time job. And what happened was, on a few occasions, our launch date had to be set back because there was so much information that we had to verify and it was correct. And in any event, so we said, let's get an electronic version out first. And that's what we did. So July 4th, the ebook or Kindle version of The Real Jerry Lewis Story launched on Amazon. And anybody can find it by going to Amazon and look for The Real Jerry Lewis Story.
It's an amazing book. It really is.
And what will happen is the hardcover book will launch on Labor Day weekend. And for those consummate Jerry Lewis fans, that has some special meaning to it.
It
also.
certainly does. Labor Day, I think it goes without question. Labor Day weekend, the Muscular Dystrophy Telethon. It was all about Jerry Lewis on Labor Day around the world for many, many years. In fact, I think it's quite appropriate, Rick, that the book comes out in hardcover on Labor Day weekend, and I'm certainly putting in for two books, one for me and one that I can hit Eddie Deezen with. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about this. This man who was universally loved, he really was kind of like the world's favorite funny guy. But in his later years, he did what I considered, and maybe I'm in the minority here, Rick, but what I considered to be quite autobiographical films like Max Rose, like the king of comedy. Uh, Films like that. And then he did some real stinkers like Hardly Working, which was god awful, just horrible. Um, did he have a visceral need to tell people who he really was? Because I think for years we went thinking that he was this, jovial, happy, funny guy all the time, and you knew that certainly not to be true.
Yeah, the question is, did Jerry want to prove to the world that he was not the funny man, that he was the bright man, the producer, the director, the writer? And the answer to the question is, Jerry didn't know himself who he was, and that was the sad part about Jerry and his life. Jerry was a very serious kid, although he got himself in a lot of trouble as a youngster.
Mm.
But he wasn't. He was a class clown only when he needed attention. But he wanted to be seen as a well-dressed young man. And a dear friend of Jerry's, who is still with us now, I think she's 98 years old. That's Lonnie. She is the lady who invented Jerry Lewis. She's the one that brought the Record Act to his attention back. Jerry would have told us that this was in the Catskills, but that was not true. It was in Lakewood, New Jersey, where Jerry put his first act together.
Yeah.
And Lonnie, her name was Lonnie Brown, the daughter of Charles and Lillian Brown, who owned Brown's Hotel in the Catskills.
Oh, sure.
But of course, they owned the hotel in Lakewood at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew Jerry when he was 13, 14, 15 years old. And they were lifelong friends. And she told me at one time that she couldn't watch his movies because the idiot character that everybody loved,
Yeah.
that wasn't him.
Mm-hmm.
And the media had a very hard time with Jerry.
Yeah. Oh boy.
At first they liked him,
Yeah.
but when they realized that they were being fooled,
Yeah.
that the guy that they thought was the simpleton clown, whatever, then Jerry insisted on showing his smart side.
Yeah.
And
Well, Rick, can you expand on that? Because I kind of alluded very briefly in my intro. You mentioned something very, very important. Appearances were very important to Jerry. How he was seen by others, how he looked, how he appeared. There was a time in his later life, and I believe he may have been, and you would know certainly better than I, he may have been in his 70s where he ballooned out. He was very, very heavy from, I believe, medication may have caused that. And you hardly ever saw him. Rarely did you see him either in an interview, or you certainly didn't see any television. You didn't see any film. He didn't do anything when he was at that large weight, other than, as I remember, doing the telethon, which of course he did regardless of how he looked.
Yeah. Jerry had he contracted a disease called pulmonary fibrosis. And there was nothing, I mean, he had been a smoker for 40 years of his life, but there was no determination what he got it from. But anyway, he got lucky. Mm-hmm. So he got pulmonary fibrosis. Mm-hmm. And the only thing they could do to keep it under control while it kind of rectified itself over a period of time was prednisone. And Jerry explained to me and others that prednisone is the worst, best medication you could take.
Absolutely. I'll vouch.
Because, some people are on prednisone for 6 weeks and, their face swells up.
Oh, yeah.
And Jerry was on it for 3.5, 4 years, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's why he got as big as he did. He wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't ashamed of it. But Well, there wasn't a lot of work for him anyway in those days.
Yeah.
And so you didn't see him on television. You didn't see him in movies.
Yeah.
You mentioned Max Rose, which stands out. He asked me when he knew that I saw Max Rose, he asked me what I thought of it.
Yeah.
And there's one thing that I never did with Jerry, and maybe I was different than anybody else who was ever in his sphere. I never lied. I never made stuff up. I was always
Mhm.
very honest with him. And he asked me what I thought about Max Rose. So the audience will understand Max Rose was a movie of an elderly musician whose wife passed away. And this was a saga of this musician trying to cope with the fact that his wife was gone and his daughter in the movie, the character who was his daughter in the movie,
Yeah.
was trying to get him to be a happy person again. A very dark movie. So now the audience knows what it was about. And when he asked me what I thought of the movie, I told him it should have gone straight to VHS. Now, I guess not everybody in the world knows what that means.
You were very, very generous, my friend.
Yes. Yeah.
Generous indeed.
Mhm.
And again, I don't want to leave anybody out. If you remember when home video first came out,
Mhm.
there was beta and there was VHS.
Oh
Mhm.
boy.
VHS
Yeah.
won the contest.
Yep.
And movies were going to VHS. You could finally rent a movie or buy a movie.
Yeah.
People spent fortunes in those days.
Mhm.
When I said went straight to VHS, that meant I wasn't a favorite Jerry Lewis movie of mine.
Yeah, exactly.
Sammy Davis during his nightclub act, when he would break into his impersonations, and he was a great impersonator, he would always say that singers always wanted to be dancers, dancers wanted to be singers, comedians wanted to be actors, and actors wanted to be comedians. And Jerry now wanted to show his serious side.
Sure.
And I've said to anybody who would ask me about, what is Jerry Lewis really like? I'd like to meet him, so on and so forth. I always say that if you love a celebrity, love them for their work,
Yes.
not necessarily for who they are, because you're
Yes.
always going to be let down.
Yes,
Mhm.
sir. I'll vouch for that. That happened with me.
Who
Actually.
was your
Um,
hero?
So they say, be careful about wanting to meet your heroes. It's
Well, yeah.
absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true.
Imagine being a kid back in the 50s and 60s,
Yeah.
and you just absolutely adored Mickey Mantle. I mean, that's my era.
Right.
And you finally got a chance to meet Mickey Mantle, and he took his bat and slammed you over the head with it. That's what you would face.
Yeah.
I had offers from people ranging $1,000 and more. Rick, can you arrange it so I could meet Jerry? I just want to meet him, maybe backstage, take a picture, and I'll
Yeah.
give you $1,000. And of course, I would never do anything like that.
Yeah.
And number one, it'd be a terrible security risk. But number two, I wouldn't do it
Yeah.
because I know these people aren't going to be happy because Jerry wasn't a happy person. Jerry didn't necessarily. Now, anything we say about Jerry during this conversation
Yeah.
does not take away from the fact that he was one of the most talented, naturally gifted
Yeah.
entertainers who ever walked the face of the earth.
Absolutely.
And that is absolutely the truth. His movies were sensational until about 1967. Then even I couldn't watch them. And the problem was tastes in comedy changed completely. Yes. But Jerry didn't know how to keep up with the times.
Well, you are among a number of people that have appeared on this show and primarily said the same thing regarding his inability, either his ineffectiveness to change or his unwillingness to change.
Right.
If you knew him very, very well for 60 plus years.
Yes.
Okay. So let's just, let's call turkey here. Was he a guy, Rick, that was ineffective at change, or was he unwilling to change?
Well, you got the first part right. He was a guy. Now let's get on with the
Smart ass.
Jerry,
You made yourself on that one.
I think that Jerry lacked the ability. I'm going to tell you a little story.
God.
We were in Berlin, Germany, 2 years in a row. And I had secured an appearance for Jerry on the Golden Camera Awards. I think they've stopped giving those away now, but that was tantamount to the Emmy here, not the Oscar, but the Emmy in the United States. Huge, spectacular program broadcast live. And before we did the Golden Camera Awards, the first year, because we were there 2 years in a row, we did Jerry did an interview program on a local news channel.
Right.
Same as ours, but they were talking in German. And Jerry walks into the studio, and he used a few expletives that I won't use because I have a French poodle who's all on. That dog doesn't know those words. But Jerry said, "Where the F are the cameras?" And I said to him, "They're embedded in the walls." He said, "Where are the cameramen?" No cameramen. He said, "Rick, if I would have known that this was a robotic studio, I would not have done this damn interview." I said, "Jerry, we're here, so let's make the best of it."
Yeah.
Now, he did the interview. It was okay. It was fine. Now, the Golden Camera Awards, I was there a little in advance before Jerry came in to check things out, make sure that that the staff and crew knew that what we were facing.
Sure.
And this was a huge, huge auditorium turned into a television studio for this award ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And as I looked around, I knew that we were going to have some trouble because the cameras were attached to the facade of the balconies. You didn't see any cameras.
Yeah.
Jerry cut his teeth in television, playing directly into the camera.
Exactly.
Sometimes even walking up to the camera and sticking his face in the lens. If you've ever, if you grew up with it, you knew it. If you watch the old Colgate Comedy Hours on YouTube,
God, sure.
That's what he did. And I said, "Oops, maybe he won't notice." Okay. So the way the studio was set up, it was a huge stage, and there was a runway that went out into the audience. And this is a much more complicated story that is spelled out completely in the book. But to kind of truncate a little bit, Jerry had promised to do a routine that he felt the German people would love. But he wasn't telling anybody until he told me at the last minute, and he had to tell the director. And he said to the director, said, "No cameras, huh?" And the director said, no cameras to get in the way of the audience's view. And Jerry said, "I need a camera with a cameraman sitting on a dolly in front of me on the runway, or I don't appear." Now, I can't tell you how much Jerry was getting paid for this date, but it was lots of money.
Substantial, I'm sure.
Substantial, yes. And we didn't want to lose the date. So I called a meeting for the directors, I said, Jerry, let's get together tomorrow morning and we'll try to work things out. They came up with a camera, and they actually put it. He got what he wanted, and that was that. The routine that he did, there were 2 routines that he did while we were in Germany. I'll tell you about. All right, the first one, he had them set an A and B switch in front of him.
Sure.
The A switch would be Jerry, and when he hit the B switch, it would cut off to the movie that they were running of Jerry doing chairman of the board, which was one of his mimes that he did from his movie. So they were running the movie, and Jerry could switch from the movie to live.
Yeah.
One of Jerry's big problems was instead of concentrating on the audience, he was concentrating more on the technology.
Yeah, sure.
Imagine if he was on this show with us today. We still wouldn't be on the air. Okay. We did get through that one. But the second year we were in Germany, we had a situation where they were celebrating Jerry's 80th birthday, his 80th birthday. And for this program, they asked him if he could do one of his mimes. And he did the typewriter.
Yeah, sure.
And if anybody has seen any of Jerry's movies or on TV,
a classic
where he was miming to the music of a typewriter being used as a percussion instrument, and it was great. In the early days, it was really terrific. I wasn't comfortable with it, but Jerry was having fun. He was feeling good, and we weren't going to get in any controversy.
Yeah.
Sure. But he did. All right. When the show was over, we're in a limousine back to our hotel. And Jerry said, Rick, I want your opinion, but I want you to be honest. I said, I'm always honest. He said, to the live audience, I did the typewriter and I wasn't getting a reaction. He said, I wanted to do that because it's comedy and there's no language barrier. Why do you think, Rick, I didn't get the laughs? I didn't get the reaction. And I said, Jerry, anybody under 40 years of age has no idea what a typewriter is.
Right.
Now, even when IBM came up with the Selectric typewriter, it was the little ball that spun around.
Yeah.
And the carriage didn't go back and forth. The ball went back and forth.
Exactly.
And people now in the mime that he did, every time in the music they rang a bell, ding, Jerry would go like that. Like he's pushing the carriage, ding.
Yep.
But if you never used the typewriter, you didn't know what he was doing.
Well, and that's kind of what we were talking about.
That's the
earlier.
Answer to your that is the answer to your question.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get there. The answer is no.
But I'm glad you did. It was great. It was great. Amelia.
Yes.
You've been sitting here, quiet the whole time.
I've been listening.
Everybody, Rick.
No, I do not.
But it's your turn. Questions for my guest, Rick Saphire.
Was there a movie that he didn't really want to do, but he had already made a commitment to do, so he just went ahead and did the movie?
Not that I know of. Are you alluding to the day the clown cried? Maybe. There was a movie that Jerry filmed in Germany that has yet to be released.
Right.
And Jerry made a career out of not telling anybody why the movie wasn't released.
Yeah.
Jerry, why didn't you release the movie? Oh, I'm not telling. Why didn't you release it? Man, he got a lot of mileage out of that.
Oh yeah.
But there's a good reason for it. He didn't own the movie. It wasn't his to release. To this day, they're saying it's going to be released in 2024. The movie was never finished.
No.
Plus, the movie had already been done.
Yeah.
Whether Jerry was aware of it.
I knew about that story going into this. Yeah, you're right, Rick. He got a lot of mileage out of that. Played it off. He was always very coy when it came to stuff like that. Very, very coy. But if you followed his career, and people like yourself and myself, we can smell through the bullshit. If you've been around the business long enough, you can sniff out the bullshit.
Yep.
And he was clearly bullshitting. Well, and the answer was simple. Yeah, he didn't own the film.
He didn't own the film.
Yeah, and he couldn't release it. It wasn't his release.
Correct. I have a letter, which I actually will show in the book. I have a letter from Patty Lewis, Jerry's wife, who I knew so well. And in the letter, Patty is writing that this is 1972, that Jerry will be coming home soon, and he's having so much trouble with the producers. Well, the only movie that Jerry made in 1972 was The Day the Clown Cried. And in the letter, she states that Jerry was having trouble with the producers, which in 1972 was the first clue that Jerry was not the producer.
Exactly.
And it's probably good at the time. It's 1972. Jerry was still really thought about as being funny, lovable, and people needed that. You don't become famous
Right.
unless there is a need for what you have to offer.
Oh, amen. Absolutely.
Yes.
And when Jerry and Dean came up in 1946, we were just months out of World War II, and we needed a laugh. We needed something simple and inane and fun, and Martin and Lewis filled the bill.
Absolutely. I think it's fair to say, and I'm not taking anything away from Jerry's comedic genius at all, or his talent whatsoever, but I think it's fair to say that without Dean Martin, we're not talking about Jerry Lewis.
Oh, of course, you're right.
We're just not.
Yeah.
I mean, would he have gotten there, Rick? I think he would have, but I think the Martin and Lewis combo, let's be honest with it, they strapped a rocket to their ass and they took off.
Well, there's a good reason why they took off, and it goes back to the talent raids of between NBC and CBS radio.
Yeah.
CBS stole all of NBC's comic talent. Fibber, Mickey, and Molly, Jack Benny, all of them. And NBC was left with almost nothing. So Dean and Jerry's manager at the time, Abby Greshler, went to NBC and said, hey, I got an act. They're real good, and their voices are very much different.
Yeah.
So NBC took a look at them and said, we're going to give them a radio show.
Sure.
An audition radio show. And they wanted to cultivate their own stars because CBS stole all of the big stars from NBC.
Yeah.
And that's when
Yep.
and that's when Martin and Lewis were first known nationally on their radio show. And it was an interesting show. It was a good show. Dean sang, Jerry did a squeaky voice, which, by the way, he stole from Dick Wesson, another comedian radio star. And that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But the timing was absolutely right for Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis.
Oh, absolutely. For sure. For sure. Rick, we're going to take a small commercial break. We will be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Watch this.
Okay.
Do you have sweaty balls or volleyball netty balls? It's time to make them ready balls. The Manscaped.com Lawnmower 3.0 will do the job and clean your knob with its patented no-nick head, so your head will function as desired. Enter promo code Wrestling Future for a generous 20% discount. That's enter Wrestling Future for a 20% discount. Manscaped.com and Wrestling with the Future, going balls to the walls with Manscaped.com and the Lawnmower 3.0. Your balls will thank you, and so will we.
Jess wanted to start a business when something surprising happened.
Today I'm going to teach you how to crochet.
She started crocheting, like a lot. And her friends noticed.
Jess, you need to sell those.
So she signed up for Shopify and started building her business.
Yes, I love that.
And after a lot of hard work, this happened.
Oh my gosh, I just made my first sale!
You see, every day, hundreds of businesses get their first sale on Shopify.
We got a ding!
And the next could be you. So when you're ready to bring your idea to life
And become your own boss.
build it on Shopify.
We are back with WWGF Radio. This is What's the Buzz, America's Best Podcast. Our guest tonight, the author of The Real Jerry Lewis Story, Rick Saphire. When last we left off, we were talking about this convoluted, complex, sometimes confusing guy named Jerry Lewis. One of the things that people, one of the adjectives, Rick, that people use in describing Jerry, particularly now that he's not here anymore,
Right.
is the word convoluted. They use that word often when they talk about the complexity of this. I'm supposing that he was probably at some level temperamental.
He laughs.
I think I struck a nerve, folks.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the complex, convoluted, confused, and often temperamental
You can say
nature of this
temperamental,
guy.
but you have to break it up into two words: temper and mental.
And mental, yeah. Go ahead.
So
Let's talk.
you break it up. Yeah. That's how Jerry was. But all of these things, when he was funny,
Yeah.
and when before he lost his funny, you see, I was often very unhappy with Jerry. Jerry felt that he no longer looked the part. He grew out of the funny look.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, look at Stan Laurel, Jerry. He's one of your idols. He made movies until I guess he was in his 50s or 60s.
Sure.
And he looked older in his later movies. And so did Oliver Hardy. But his character never changed. Lou Costello didn't live to 60, but still, when he started, he was in his 20s.
Sure.
And when he was near 60, he still played that same character, and people believed it.
Well, can I say something about that, Rick? And I'm so happy that you went and talked about two of the legends, Stan Laurel and Lou Costello.
Oh, yeah.
Stan always had that kind of like, that kind of thing going on. Lou Costello was always, even when he was younger, he was a rotund guy, right? Round. Jerry was the skinny kid, from Hoboken.
No, Newark.
And from where?
Frank Sinatra was from Hoboken. Jerry was from Newark.
Newark. I'm sorry. They were both Jersey guys. But let's talk about that. One of the things that I think lent to the funny was the look. He was a skinny, squirrely kid with of course, now we know what was put on, the high voice. And he had a great foil, Dean Martin.
Right.
As Jerry got older and put on weight and matured, well, it's just natural, Rick, that's not going to play. Why
that's
did
not
he think it would?
that's not why it didn't play.
Why did it not play, sir?
Because tastes in comedy changed.
There you go.
That's
Wasn't
really
slapstick anymore.
that was the answer. Slapstick, that kind of slapstick was out. Sophisticated comedy started to come in. Jerry tried his hand at some sophisticated comedy.
Yeah.
Boeing he did, and Way Out, some other films, and he couldn't find his place.
Yeah.
Television was the same thing, but if Jerry were likable, that's all he had to be. Charming and likable. Look at Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson, when he started the Tonight Show, he was a skinny young guy. When he finished the Tonight Show, he, I don't know.
He was a mean-spirited prick. I'll just say it. I'll just say it. Rick, he was a mean-spirited prick.
You'll eat those words.
Yeah. He was. Johnny Carson. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. Johnny Carson was a schmuck. He really was.
But guess what? He didn't let the audience in on it. Who cares?
Exactly.
That's who cares on television. Maybe that's why he only worked 4 nights a week, Johnny Carson, because he had to be a schmuck 3 nights a week, and he could put it on. But whatever it was, he was a good actor.
Jerry
was a great actor.
Yes.
Until not only did the technology change, the taste in comedy changed. But what Jerry never lived by was something that if you want to have a lifelong career, you always have to remember your original fans, because they're the ones that are going to love you no matter what.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I've already gotten 3 nasty letters from people who hate my book. All 3 letters were written a week before the book was published.
Wow.
I'm being serious. I've gotten a couple of very nice ones, but it's true. They just hated the idea of anybody. They don't know what I'm saying in the book.
Yeah.
And I'm saying a lot of terrific things about Jerry, but there's some things in this book that will absolutely stun people.
Yeah.
And I'm going to shift a little bit because I want to give the people who are watching, a little something to hang their hat on here.
One of the things we had, I guess maybe about 6 months ago, we had a Jerry Lewis impersonator on the show, Angelo Capone.
Yeah, I know Angelo.
Oh, you know Angelo, right? Okay. Angelo said something real interesting when Amelia and I interviewed him. I said to him, Ange, what happened to Jerry as he got older? And he gave me a very interesting answer. He said he was no longer the little boy, because his whole act was the innocent little boy, with playing to Dean as the daddy, Well, would you agree with that, or would you add something to it or take something away from that?
Well, partially, because Jerry played the little boy while he was with Dean, but when he broke off with Dean, he did. On Jerry's first comedy special, a spectacular, they used to call him. I was there. I was in the audience.
Yeah.
And Jerry was now a single, yet he had Jan Murray on the program with him to play the role of what Dean Martin would have done in the opening routine. So he still needed that. But Jerry was known as that image, but he could have, if he played to his original fans, he could have brought them along with the change. But he couldn't do it. It wasn't in him. People ask me if Jerry Lewis was a genius. Now, I don't know. Is there anything written down that says exactly what a genius is? I don't know.
Yeah.
But my answer to the question is yes. Jerry Lewis was a genius at writing, producing, directing, and starring in Jerry Lewis movies.
Sure.
But what else did he write, direct, produce, and star in?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
And
that was it. Oh, well,
Jerry-
I have a question right along that line, because it's one of the things I said in my intro was that he was a groundbreaking filmmaker in that he wrote, produced, staged, and directed almost all the films that he appeared in. Why was that the case? Were there people who didn't want to work with him? Were there people who he couldn't work with? Or did he simply not trust the process to someone else?
No. The deal with when it started with Martin and Lewis is that Paramount Pictures would produce and distribute one Jerry Martin and Lewis movie. The next movie was produced by Martin and Lewis's production company, but released by Paramount. Then the next movie would be a Paramount production, and then the next movie would be a Martin and Lewis. And when Jerry and Dean and Jerry broke up, they gave him a contract where it was every other movie was Jerry's. And in the movies that were Jerry's, he produced, directed, blah, 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 blah. The first one was The Bellboy.
Yeah.
And there's a wonderful story about The Bellboy in the book. Jerry sent a copy of the script to Stan Laurel, who Jerry idolized. And it's a good idol to have. Stan Laurel suggested to Jerry that he title, and the movie was filmed at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Florida. And Stan Laurel, recommended to Jerry that he title the movie The Belle, Belle, The Belle of Fontainebleau. And Jerry turned it down. But there was a reason. 6 years before Jerry was born, Fatty Arbuckle made a movie released by Paramount called The Bellboy. Stan Laurel knew that. It was the same premise. It was a steal. And so you could find The Bellboy. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie.
I'll tell you what, that's a great segue, Rick. Why don't we do this? Check this out. It might bring some memories back. It might bring some topic of conversation up for you. But let's take a look at this. Check this out.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, I was watching your face, Rick, as that clip was playing, and I saw both fondness,
Mm-hmm.
sadness. A guy missed his friend a lot, and I saw an interesting dynamic happen in your face when you were looking at certain movie titles,
Right.
like Cracking Up and Hardly Working, and when the picture of Max Rose came up, I saw your face change.
Well, I nearly threw up, but
Can you tell me? I didn't plan to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it. Can you tell me what kind of emotional hold, if any, that has on you? Does it speak to you, or have you been there for all of that and it's just like old hat?
part of what speaks to me is the memory of maybe my real hero and the associate producer, sometimes executive producer, sometimes producer of several of those movies that you showed the promos to, and that was my uncle Ernest D. Glucksman. My uncle, who I write about in the Real Jerry Lewis story, who is by today's standards uncredited because Jerry made him disappear after they parted ways.
Yeah.
My uncle, without Ernest D. Glucksman, there would have been the fame of Martin and Lewis would have never been what it was.
Sure.
The Colgate Comedy Hour was my uncle's. NBC came to my uncle in 1950. He was already a producer of live variety shows and had done some television. They said to him, "We got a team coming out of radio." He knew who they were, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. He says, "But what you've got here, you've got a suave Italian singer and a monkey, and you got to do something with them, Ernie." And he made them what they were for the 5 years at the Colgate Comedy, or 4 years, then it became the Colgate Variety Hour. And I see the movies that my uncle was associated with. And I remember my uncle told me one of those movies was Three Ring Circus. And originally the movie was going to be called The Big Top. And my uncle very proudly told me that he convinced Paramount to change the name to Three Ring Circus, because that was a saying when something was crazy or when it was, wild, it was like a three-ring circus.
Sure.
So they changed the name. But probably that's what I was thinking of more than just Jerry himself.
I should point out to people that Arnie Gluckman is a member of the Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame and is immortalized in that. But you can go on to the internet and actually seek it out and see everybody who is in the Broadcast Pioneer Hall of Fame, along with people like Edward R. Murrow for news, and certainly Stan Laurel and Jerry Lewis for comedy. Yeah. But it's an amazing place to go online. Actually, it's a real place too, if you want to go to LA and see it. But online, if you can't get there, you can go online to the Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame and see Rick's uncle, Arnie Gluckman.
Yeah, he was an amazing guy.
Yeah,
he is the man that got Martin and Lewis involved in the Muscular Dystrophy Association.
Oh,
wow!
I was present as a youngster at the first 3 muscular dystrophy telethons. First one was with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Halfway during that show, and I had a job there. I was 9 years old. I had a job to take the pledge cards from the telephone operators in the back and give them to my uncle, and he'd give them to Dean and Jerry to read on the air. But I was told halfway during that show that this would be the last live television appearance for Martin and Lewis, and everybody, the word spread around, everybody was crushed. They could not believe that Dean and Jerry were actually going to split up.
Yeah.
And the way youngsters felt, if Martin and Lewis could split up, my parents could split up. How could that be?
Yeah.
And that was very interesting. But my uncle was a great guy. I got some nice pictures of him in the book too. Also, excuse me, Also, in the book, the readers will find some stories that they didn't expect to find.
Sure.
My wife, Sheila, who is a English professor, thank goodness, because in school, my grades look like vitamin deficiencies. So she's the brains.
I'm with you.
But between the two of us, we unraveled something with the help of detectives, with the help of lawyers, with the help of the New Jersey State Archives. We found out finally something that Jerry didn't know, and that is he was not responsible for the death of his high school principal. And it's I guess a pretty shocking story.
Yeah, it is a shocking story. I've heard that story, and I actually heard Jerry give 4 different versions
of it. Right.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yes.
4 different versions of the same story.
You're right there. You're absolutely right. The last version he gave was the closest to the truth.
Okay.
Jerry was purging himself because, and he got his name wrong when he mentioned his name on one of those interviews.
Yeah.
Supposedly, the principal made a comment about the Jews, which Jerry took exception to, and he punched the principal in the mouth, not breaking his jaw, knocking him through a plate glass window, etc. That's the true story.
Right.
What Jerry didn't talk about was the fact that approximately a year later, I believe at the age of 56, Principal Herder died. And the diagnosis for his terminal problem was made just weeks after he was brutally attacked by Jerry. And Jerry, well, it goes a long way. Jerry, through his entire life, lied about his name.
Yeah.
And I have documentation in the book, including legal documents.
Sure.
Jerry tried to change his name from Joseph Levitch to Jerry Lewis. And I've got the legal documents, the actual paperwork. And the reason why Jerry's name was never legally changed is because Jerry's name was never Joseph Levitch.
Exactly.
It was Jerome.
Yes.
And he had the courts sign off on Joseph Levitch.
And I've heard that. I've heard that story again 2 or 3 times, twice from Jerry, and then once from.
We might have talked about it ourselves on the last time I was.
No, I don't know if we did or not, Rick. I don't recall.
Well, there's always been controversy about Jerry's name because he wanted that.
I knew for sure. I knew for absolutely certain that his name was not Joseph. It was Jerome. That I was positive.
Right.
The thing that was always in question to me was the name Levitch.
Oh, Levitch was his name. That was his father's, and that was his parents' name.
Okay.
Didn't
his dad perform as Danny Lewis?
Oh yeah, of course. Well, everybody's entitled to a stage name.
Of course.
Sure, absolutely.
Excuse me, but he was Danny Levitch in life. Yeah. Excuse me.
Right. Sure. Absolutely.
Drink.
Yeah, it's going to be a little quick drink break for everyone.
I'll tell you what, Amelia, now's a good time to get in. Speaking of drinks, our last sponsor of the night. Check this out, guys.
Check it out.
Introducing the new and improved taste of Pepsi Zero Sugar. Now more delicious. Zero never tasted so good. Try it now.
Check it out.
There you go. My friends of Pepsi.
That was great.
There you go.
I could watch that commercial again. Boy, that
absolutely.
All right, let's go play it again. Pepsi's getting their money's worth tonight.
Right?
I wonder if it's
why was it such a point of contention with him? Why not just tell people who you are?
Because he thought he killed somebody.
I see. Oh.
And
remarkable.
that happened when he was a youngster.
Young kid, yeah.
And scared.
And when Gary Lewis was born, Jerry's first son, Jerry and Patty's first son, who became a big rock and roll star.
Sure.
Gary Lewis and the Playboys.
Still performing, by the way.
Oh, yes. Yeah. 20 weeks a year.
Yep.
When Gary was born, his first name on his birth certificate was Cary, Cary, because his mom loved Cary Grant.
Sure.
On his birth certificate, Jerome Levich's son is named at birth Cary Lewis. Jerry did not name his son Levitch because he didn't want his son to have that name, because they lived in Newark and excuse me.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm going to live through this interview.
You'll be fine.
I'm just going to get to the crux of a great story. I'm going to like that.
I will you to live forever.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. I already have. But no. He was scared to death that he in 1946. 1945, I should say. I'm sorry. Jerry had no idea he was going to become a superstar. Moved to California. He figured he'd live in Newark and Irvington, New Jersey, for years, and his son would grow up as a school student. And the school, they loved Principal Herder. He was at Irvington High School for over 20 years.
Wow, that's a lot.
And Jerry, first of all, when Jerry attacked him, Principal Herder was already dying of his disease.
Sure.
But Jerry had no way of knowing, because Jerry was expelled the day that he attacked the principal. And his father put him in what was a tantamount to a reform school, and then Jerry quit school.
Yeah.
At very early, I guess the age of 16.
Yeah.
15, 16, whatever it was. So Gary Lewis's name on his birth certificate is Cary Lewis.
Cary Lewis.
Cary. There was no person named Lewis in that family.
No.
Legally. And but we discovered it all, and Gary never knew this until we discussed it with him until recently.
Yeah.
But if I only wish Jerry were here today so I could tell him that he didn't kill the principal.
Yeah.
Because I believe that laid heavily on his, and that's why he told the story so many times in his older years.
Yeah.
He was kind of purging the guilt, getting it out.
Yeah, I often wondered that, because I heard him within a very short window of time tell that story 4 different times and 4 different versions of the same story.
Well, they say the worst part about lying is you always have to remember what you say.
You have to remember, exactly. You got to remember the lie.
Right.
One of the things I want to talk to you about, and then if you're okay talking about,
I'm good. I'm fine.
I would love to talk about Jerry Lewis, the father, the absent father, the reluctant father. Did he want to be a father, or was, as we said previously, was this the whole family thing? Was it all for show?
I don't think it was all for show. Although Gary has often told me Dad was the nicest to us when the cameras were rolling.
I heard that.
Didn't have patience for the kids.
Yeah.
When Jerry and Patty were married, and they lied about the date of their marriage. Finally, the actual date's coming out in the book, plus a copy of their marriage certificate. But when Patty and Jerry were married, she was a newly retired big band singer. She was great. Patty Palmer was her name.
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
In all the years I knew Patty, oh God, did I have a crush on Patty?
Beautiful woman.
Oh, she was wonderful. We used to go out to lunch whenever they were in New York. In the 2 weeks when I did the Tonight Show with Jerry, that was during the interim period between Jack Paar and Johnny Carson.
Mm-hmm.
I had such a crush on her, and it's hard to believe at my age now that I actually had a live crush on a woman who today would be 101 years old.
Wow.
Who's that? Marilyn?
No, Patty.
Oh, Patty. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, Patty. Yeah. Oh, in the book you'll learn the truth about Marilyn Monroe. I promise. Yeah.
Oh, we heard some stories about Marilyn on this.
Now, I have to get the book now. I can't wait.
Well,
you'll get a copy, absolutely. Amelia, questions for Rick Saphire. Go for it, kid.
Speaking of the book,
me any questions, Amelia, and I'll ask you about your luggage. How long you've been?
Okay. Was there a lot of chapters that you wanted to put on the book in the book that you did not put in there that you wished you had?
Ooh, yeah. How much did you have to cut?
Yeah.
Nothing. The name of the book, if you look carefully at the picture of the book, is The Real Jerry Lewis Story, Volume 1.
Oh, yes. So there's going to be more. Oh, I can't wait.
There's going to be at least 30 more.
We'll see. We'll see.
That was my next question, actually.
We'll see how many volume 1s we sell.
Oh,
you know, I mean, it was a lot of work.
Well, we'll be happy to
say, Rick, you probably have. There's got to be at least 3 books.
Oh, absolutely.
There's got to be at least 3 books in this.
Well,
easily.
One of the chapters in the book would have been a book in and of itself, and we decided to combine it.
I'm intrigued.
And that's the story, which kind of leads into what your earlier question was about children, because Susan Minoret,
right,
who goes by the name of Susan Lewis,
sure,
is Jerry's legitimate daughter.
Yeah.
And, you know, they say there are no illegitimate children, only illegitimate parents.
Yeah.
And Susan, my wife and I helped her very much to try to find her place in life. She only wanted to be acknowledged by her father.
Yeah.
Jerry refused, but for some very fascinating reasons. And everybody loves a good mafia story. So read the book and you'll find out why.
Well, I should tell people, and I'm not going to tip the hat, but I should tell people that Susan is living on the streets of Philadelphia as we speak. That's as much as I'll say. I do know where she is. The show has been in touch with her, and she has thus far refused to participate.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot more going on than just her being homeless. I think there's some other
yeah. When I was representing
other things at work,
when I was representing Susan, she wasn't homeless because my wife and I provided her with a place to live. She actually lived in Philadelphia with my brother-in-law in a row home in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And we were doing some good things because I said to Susan, I said, I know you want your dad to acknowledge you, Susan. And Gary told her the same thing because Gary is the humanitarian of the family.
Yeah.
He's the only member of the family that stood up for Susan, did a DNA test on Inside Edition. No matter what the result would be, my rule was they had to broadcast it. And it turns out that it was a slam dunk. Of course, she was Jerry's daughter. And Jerry wanted that to come out, but he had to kind of stay.
I'll tell you what, that is a great way to end night 1. This is volume 1.
All right.
The Real Jerry Lewis Story with Rick Saphire. Tomorrow night, we will be here for volume 2. I promise you, with Eddie Deezen, actor Eddie Deezen from Grease, The Polar Express, 1941, Midnight Madness, Amelia's favorite movie. God,
yes,
That'll be a lot of fun. I'm gonna enjoy it.
And a guy who has been compared his entire career to Jerry Lewis.
Well, that's interesting. I can't wait to discuss it.
Yeah,
And
from
may I
his
take
look
about
to
10
his
seconds?
sound.
May I
Yes,
take
sir.
about 10 seconds? I'll mention
Yeah.
Coca-Cola again. And the fact that if anybody is interested in purchasing the book in ebook form, you go to Amazon and just look up the real Jerry Lewis story. It's
Absolutely.
inexpensive.
And we are going to put all that information in our description. And tomorrow night, you will see not only the book, but you will find out where you can pre-order it for hard copy. It's available, I think, right now
as an ebook. Yes,
ebook, right? So you could get it for Kindle and download all that stuff.
Correct.
So we will see Rick Saphire again tomorrow night. And for Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman, I am the Mad Dog, Angelo Mad Dog DeCipio. We'll see you tomorrow night, folks. Take care. God bless, and hopefully, be nice to each other, because it's it's only Monday right now. Only Monday.
Only Monday.
Be nice.
Well, I'm not even going to leave here. I want to be here on time for tomorrow, so I'm just going to sit here all night and wait for the show to start.
So is Eddie Deezen.
Okay, Eddie, if you're listening.
Good night, folks.
Good night.